The emergency transmission crackled through every speaker in the Galactic Council chamber at precisely 400 hours. Ambassador Talron's voice broke halfway through his first sentence. "They're all dead," he whispered, and 47 species fell silent. Rebecca Stone sat in the human observation gallery, stylus frozen above her datapad. Around her, council members began shouting over each other, their translation devices creating overlapping demands and accusations. 40,000 civilians, Talron continued, his 4 eyes blinking as Marathi did when processing trauma. Refuge 7 was a farming colony, families who wanted nothing more than to grow crops under a new sun. He pulled up holographic images that made 3 delegates vomit. Rebecca forced herself to watch. The Drackle had arrived 6 hours before dawn. Their ships bypassed every detection grid. Witnesses described methodical efficiency. They didn't bombard from orbit. Instead, they landed troops simultaneously in every settlement. What followed wasn't war. It was extermination. Families pulled from homes and executed in streets. Survivors hid underground and listened to the screams. Council Chairman Vrelix attempted to restore order. "We must consider our response carefully," he said. "Economic sanctions, perhaps a travel embargo." Talron slammed all 4 hands on his podium. "You want to debate trade restrictions while my people's bodies are still warm." His voice carried rage Rebecca hadn't known the peaceful Marathi possessed. "This is the 3rd genocide in 20 years. How many more worlds must burn before you stop talking and start acting?" The Drackle ambassador, a massive reptilian named Croth, rose from his platform. "The Marathi were warned," he said without inflection. "They established colonies in disputed territory. Their presence was aggression." "You're claiming 40,000 farmers were combatants?" Talron asked. "That children were soldiers." "Weak species make convenient excuses," Croth replied. "The strong take what they require. This is natural law." The debate stretched 12 hours. Rebecca transmitted continuous updates to Earth Command, her reports growing more frustrated. She watched species who outnumbered the Drackle 10-1 argue about proper diplomatic channels while bodies cooled on Refuge 7. The final vote came at hour 14. Sanctions would be implemented over 8 months, Croth laughed. "In 8 months, 3 more colonies will fall. Your bureaucracy is our greatest weapon." Rebecca requested permission to address the council. Chairman Vrelix denied it. "Human observer status does not include speaking privileges. Your species is too new to understand galactic politics." Rebecca sat silent while rage built behind her professional composure. When the session adjourned, she found Talron in a side corridor, his 4 arms wrapped around himself. "I'm sorry," she said. Talron looked at her with eyes that had aged decades in a day. "You haven't seen how this always ends. The Drackle make threats, the Council makes compromises, and my people keep dying." Rebecca checked the corridor was empty. "My species has seen genocides," she said quietly. "Rwanda, Cambodia, the Holocaust, we have monuments built from our failures." She met all 4 of his eyes. "We learned that evil doesn't stop when good people negotiate. It stops when good people act." "The Council won't act," Talron said. "I know," Rebecca replied, "but Earth might." She returned to her quarters and composed a detailed report, every image, every testimony, every second of Council failure. She sent it through encrypted channels to Earth Command. The response arrived 3 hours later. "Acknowledged. Stand by." 2 days later, Drackle ships destroyed 3 human merchant vessels in neutral space. Earth Command issued a public statement. "Any further aggression against human assets will be met with proportional response." Croth dismissed it during the next council session. "Another prey species making threats. The Dominion has 800 warships. Intelligence suggests Earth has perhaps 200. Rebecca said nothing. She had received new orders that morning, full diplomatic authority and a classified briefing about fleet movements that made her realize Croth's intelligence was catastrophically outdated. The morning of the 21st day after Refuge 7, sensors detected a Drackle war fleet of 400 ships entering Marathi space. Council emergency broadcasts began. Evacuation orders went out to 6 billion Marathi, but there wasn't enough time. Talron stood before the council. "My people will die today. Remember, you chose debate over action." Rebecca sent one final message to Earth. "They're making their move." The response came instantly. "So are we. Watch the edge of the system." She didn't understand until the spatial distortions began, hundreds of them tearing reality like wounds. Through those wounds came ships bearing an insignia the galaxy hadn't seen in force. A simple blue marble on black. Earth had arrived, and they hadn't come to talk. 200 ships materialized at the edge of Marathi space in synchronized emergence that painted sensor screens with brilliant white signatures. Rebecca watched from the council observation deck as delegates scrambled to identify the fleet. Their databases had nothing. Admiral Patricia cross-transmitted on all frequencies. "This is Earth Defense Fleet Baker 7 to all vessels. We are assuming defensive positions around Marathi homeworld. Any hostile action will be met with immediate response." The Drackle warfleet hung in space like predators surprised by unexpected prey. 400 vessels against Earth's 200. War leader Kreth opened communications. "Unknown fleet, you interfere in Dominion operations. Withdraw or be destroyed. We have numerical superiority and centuries of combat experience." Patricia's response came without hesitation. "War leader Kreth, you have 60 seconds to reverse course. This is your only warning." Kreth's laughter filled every speaker in council space. 60 seconds. Then what? Earth has no victories, no reputation. You know nothing of real war. 30 seconds, Patricia said. Rebecca found Talron in the crowd. He stared at the tactical display with all four hands pressed against the viewing glass. "Why are they doing this? They're outnumbered. They'll die for people they barely know." Rebecca thought of history lessons from her childhood. "Because someone has to," she said. The countdown reached 0. Kreth ordered his fleet forward. 400 Drackle warships accelerated in perfect wedge formation. Earth's fleet scattered into patterns that looked like chaos. Individual destroyers broke away at angles that violated every tactical doctrine the Council had documented. "They're panicking," Kroth announced from his delegation platform. "See how they scatter. Prey species always break formation when facing true predators." But Rebecca saw what the Drackle didn't. Each human ship moved with purpose. They weren't fleeing, they were positioning. The first engagement lasted 8 seconds. A human destroyer designated Resolute passed within knife-fighting range of a Drackle cruiser, the Alien. Ship's weapons tracked but couldn't match the destroyer's acceleration. Resolute fired once. A railgun round moving at relativistic speeds punched through shields. It struck the cruiser's engine section with surgical precision. The massive ship went dark and began tumbling. Kreth's formation wavered. All ships full assault overwhelmed them with numbers. The Drackle fleet surged forward. Human ships danced through the fire with unnatural grace. Their targeting systems tracked thousands of threat vectors simultaneously, while pilots executed maneuvers that would have killed less augmented crews. Admiral Patricia authorized weapons free at minute 7. Human cruisers unleashed particle beams calibrated to specific frequencies that made Drackle shields collapse. Missile pods ejected thousands of small interceptors that swarmed larger vessels. Carrier ships deployed fighter squadrons too small and fast for traditional point defense. The tactical display turned into abstract art. Red icons representing Drackle ships began winking out with alarming frequency. 30 ships disabled in 15 minutes, then 50, then 80. Human casualties, 4 destroyers damaged, 0 destroyed. Kreth finally understood. These weren't prey species playing at warfare. These were predators who had refined killing into science. "Target their flagship. If we destroy their commander, the fleet will break." 30 Drackle ships concentrated fire on Patricia's vessel, the carrier Freedom's Price. Energy weapons converged on a single point. Then the human fleet responded with coordinated precision. Every nearby Earth ship opened fire simultaneously. not at Kreth's ships, but at the incoming energy. Interceptor missiles detonated in sequence, creating explosions that dissipated the attack. Freedom's price emerged unscathed. All ships, Patricia transmitted. Disable and capture when possible. These crews will answer for Refuge 7 in a court of law. The battle became a demonstration. Earth's ships systematically dismantled the Dracul fleet, targeting engines, weapons, life support, precision strikes that left hulls intact but combat capability destroyed. Kreth attempted to target Marathi cities from orbit, his final desperate move. Patricia's response was instantaneous. A railgun round traveled 3,000 kilometers in under 2 seconds. It punched through Kreth's flagship shields through 17 meters of armor and vaporized the command deck. The war leader died without knowing what hit him. His second-in-command surrendered 40 seconds later. Rebecca stood in the observation deck surrounded by silent council delegates. The battle had lasted 37 minutes. 400 Dracul ships, 240 disabled, 80 destroyed, 80 in retreat. Earth's fleet, 18 ships damaged, 3 lost with all hands. Talrin approached with trembling hands. Why sacrifice your people for ours? Rebecca turned from the display where human ships were deploying rescue shuttles to save Dracul crew from dying vessels. Because someone showed us once that silence makes you complicit, she said. We've been the victims, we've been the bystanders, we've even been the perpetrators. We decided that never again means never again for everyone, not just for us. Chairman Vrelix floated before the assembly. The council must convene to discuss these developments. No, Rebecca interrupted. No more discussions while people die. Earth is establishing tribunals for war crimes. The survivors will face justice. The galaxy can watch and learn what happens when you actually enforce your laws. She walked out while the council processed her words. Outside, human Marines were preparing holding facilities for 4,000 Dracul prisoners. They would be fed, clothed, given medical care, and treated with every dignity the Geneva Conventions provided. Then they would testify about Refuge 7. The age of talk was ending. The age of accountability had arrived. Commander Vosh sat in a cell that confused him more than any battle briefing. The walls were clean, painted soft gray. His sleeping platform had cushioning. Air temperature remained optimal for Dracul physiology. 3 meals arrived daily, prepared according to his species' nutritional requirements. He had communication access to contact his family. This was nothing like the human torture chambers Dominion propaganda described. Sergeant David Wilson made rounds every 4 hours. A human barely reaching Vosh's chest plates, carrying no weapons except chemical spray. "Evening, Commander," he said, passing a datapad through the barrier. "Got your family's response. Your mate says she's relieved you're alive." "Why?" Vosh asked. "Why treat us like this? We came to kill your allies. Why show mercy?" David leaned against the corridor wall. "Because you're a person. Being my enemy doesn't make you a monster. My grandfather fought in a war where the enemy did terrible things. But after, prisoners went home, found jobs, raised families, because the war ended and people are still people." Vosh thought about that long after David left. Rebecca Stone stood before the Galactic Council 3 weeks after the Battle of Marathi. 47 species packed the chamber. News feeds broadcast to 600 worlds. "Members of the Council," she began, "we are here to determine whether Earth's tribunals will receive galactic recognition. I ask you to consider not the law, but the cost of ignoring it." She activated holographic displays. Images from Refuge 7 filled the chamber. 40,000 civilians murdered in 6 hours. This was not war. This was genocide, and this was not the first time. The displays shifted. 2 previous colonies, similar massacres. 3 genocides, 112,000 dead. And your response was to establish committees. Council member Vrelix attempted to interrupt. "The human observer does not have." "I have evidence," Rebecca cut him off. "I have testimony. I have survivors you ignored, and I have 3,000 Drackle prisoners willing to testify about how their command structure systematically targets civilian populations. Talrin rose from his delegation. The Marathi species supports Earth's tribunal. We have watched council justice fail repeatedly. Perhaps it's time to try something else. Rebecca played an audio file. Drackle Supreme Overlord Grath addressing his commanders. Weak species exist to be dominated or destroyed. Show no mercy. Leave examples that others will fear. The chamber fell silent. The vote took 6 hours. Final tally: 34 species in favor, 12 against, 8 abstentions. The Drackle ambassador departed with threats of retaliation. The first trial began the following morning. Admiral Rothak entered the chamber in restraints. Human judges sat alongside council legal experts. Proceedings broadcast live to every world. Prosecutor Rebecca Stone presented evidence methodically. Ship logs showing Rothak's direct orders. Communications proving he knew targets were civilian. Testimony from his crew describing how he personally authorized hunting children. Rothak's defense argued he followed Dominion law. Rebecca's response was surgical. Genocide is not a cultural difference, it's a crime. That transcends borders. We established these laws after humanity murdered millions of its own. We wrote them in blood, and we will enforce them regardless of who violates them. The testimony of survivors broke something in the watching galaxy. A Marathi mother described watching her offspring executed while Rothak's soldiers laughed. She provided recordings from her neural implant. Her memories became evidence. Vosh watched the trial from his cell. He had volunteered to testify for the prosecution, to explain how Dominion indoctrination taught soldiers that certain species weren't people. David Wilson found him after the verdict, guilty on all counts, life imprisonment. "You testified well," David said. "I told the truth," Vosh replied. "I've spent weeks in your custody, treated better than I ever was in Dominion service. It made me question everything. If humans are the monsters our leaders claimed, why do you feed us, heal us, allow us to contact our families?" David smiled sadly. "Because we've been monsters before. Humans have committed genocides. We've tortured and killed and justified it all. When we finally stopped, we looked at what we'd become. We decided that never again meant preventing it from happening to anyone." "Your species learned from your evil," Vosh said. "We're trying to," David admitted. The conversation was interrupted by alerts across every channel. The Drackle Dominion was mobilizing. Supreme Overlord Grath had declared war on Earth and all supporting species. 2,000 warships gathering at the border. David's face went pale. "We don't have 2,000 ships." Vosh stood slowly. "Then you'll need allies who know Dominion tactics. Commander, I formally request to join Earth's military forces, if you'll have a former enemy." David looked at him for a long moment. "That's not my decision, but I'll take you to someone who can make it." Rebecca Stone received them in her makeshift office. She listened to Vosh's offer without expression. "You understand this makes you a traitor to the Dominion. If they capture you, death would be merciful compared to what they'll do." "I know," Vosh replied. "I've been a coward following orders instead of conscience. I can't undo what I've done, but I can help stop it from happening again." Rebecca studied him, then extended her hand in the human gesture of agreement. "Welcome to the Resistance, Commander. Let's teach the Dominion what it means to face people who actually fight for something." Outside, the stars waited, and somewhere in that darkness an armada was coming. Admiral Patricia Cross studied the tactical projection and felt the weight of impossible decisions. 2,000 Drackle warships massed at the border. Her fleet numbered 800 after combining Earth's forces with allied species. The mathematics were brutal. Supreme Overlord Grath's transmission filled the screen. "Earth and its collaborators, you have 72 hours to release all prisoners and dissolve your tribunals. Failure will result in total war. We will burn your worlds and ensure your species serves as a lesson." Patricia simply said, "Prepare for defensive operations, all ships to combat readiness." The 72 hours passed. Rebecca Stone reported from Council Space that half the member species wanted to surrender to Dracul demands. "What about the Vrelians?" Patricia asked. "They voted for tribunals." "They're voting now to revoke that support," Rebecca said. "They think compliance will spare them." Patricia's prediction proved accurate 90 minutes after the ultimatum expired. Grath's fleet didn't attack human positions. Instead, they jumped directly to Vrelia, 2,000 ships against 40 Vrelian defenders. The battle lasted 8 minutes. Then orbital bombardment began. Patricia watched the sensor feeds, cities burning, millions dying, distress calls flooding every frequency. Helm plot jumped to Vrelia, maximum speed. Her tactical officer spoke carefully. "Admiral, that's likely a diversion." "I know the tactical assessment," Patricia interrupted. "I also know we didn't come this far to let millions die while we protect our strategic position." All ships were going in. The fleet jumped, 800 ships against 2,000. Arriving mid-massacre, Patricia didn't hesitate. All weapons free. Priority targets are ships conducting bombardment. Human destroyers screamed into Dracul formations, their smaller size allowing maneuvers that capital ships couldn't match. Railguns firing with mechanical precision. Lieutenant Rachel Torres led Alpha companies drop to Vrelia's surface. 200 Marines deploying into Hell. Dracul ground forces already hunting survivors through burning cities. Rachel's orders: establish perimeter around civilian shelters. They hit ground under fire, plasma bolts turning air to. "Superheated death. Weapons free," Rachel transmitted. "Anything shooting at you or civilians is hostile. Move out." Alpha Company advanced through streets that looked like war crime evidence. Bodies scattered everywhere. Rachel's medics worked frantically, stabilizing, extracting, loading survivors onto shuttles while combat teams held the perimeter. A Dracul platoon advanced, 600 soldiers against her 200. Rachel positioned her people with efficiency born from combat experience. Sergeant Rodriguez, crossfire from that building. Corporal Lee, turned that intersection into a kill zone. The Dracul charged with predator confidence. They ran into carefully positioned Marine fire teams. Every corner became an ambush, every building a fortress. The advance stalled against 200 Marines who refused to yield. In orbit, Patricia watched her fleet take casualties, 18 ships destroyed, 42 damaged. Then sensors detected new contacts, 400 ships emerging from jump space. Earth's second fleet. Admiral Chen's voice: "Hope we're not too late to this party." The battle's mathematics shifted. 1,200 Allied ships against 2,000 Dominion. Patricia coordinated with Chen, their fleets moving in synchronization to trap Grath's forces between them. On the surface, Rachel's company was down to 60 effectives, ammunition critical. But they'd saved 18,000 Vrelian civilians. The last transport was lifting off when Dracul reinforcements arrived. 300 fresh soldiers against her exhausted Marines. "Fall back to secondary positions," Rachel ordered. Knowing there were none, this was it. Then the Vrelian civilians did something unexpected. They emerged from shuttles armed with whatever they could find. Thousands of them joining the defensive line. An elderly Vrelian stood beside Rachel, holding a modified plasma cutter. "You showed us courage. Time we returned the favor." The combined defense held, barely, long enough for Dracul fleet to break orbit. Grath ordering retreat as his forces faced encirclement. The Supreme Overlord had lost 800 ships. Rachel sat among her surviving 23 Marines, covered in ash and blood. A young private asked if they'd won. Rachel looked at the burning city. "We saved who we could. That's the only victory that matters." Patricia received casualty reports, 12,000 dead across the fleet. They'd saved Vrelia at catastrophic cost. Rebecca called. 6 more species just voted to join the coalition. Seeing you defend the Vrelians changed minds." "Tell them to bring ships," Patricia said. "Grath won't stop." On his flagship limping back to Dominion space, Grath raged at his commanders. Mobilize everything. I want 10,000 ships. We will crush Earth completely. But in holding cells of captured Drackle ships, Commander Vosh was already making contact with resistance members, broadcasting truth about Vrelia, about human determination, seeds of revolution spreading through the enemy fleet. Captain Threll found Vosh after his release to reserves. They'd served together before his capture. "You survived," she said carefully. "I need to show you something," Vosh replied. He activated his neural implant, projecting videos from captivity, images of human guards treating prisoners with dignity. Threll watched in silence. This could be fabricated. "I lived it," Vosh said. "They could have tortured us. Instead, they gave us trials, treated us like people." He showed her more. Humans rescuing Drackle crew from damaged ships. "I was taught humans are monsters, but I've seen monsters, and they wear Dominion uniforms." Threll took a risk, pulled out a data chip. "I'm part of a resistance network, officers and civilians who think Grath is destroying our species, but we have no proof that anything else is possible." She looked at the videos. "This changes things." The war had truly begun, and revolution was spreading. Commander Vosh's escape from the prisoner transport looked convincing because it was partially real. Human special forces had created a debris field suggesting combat. Vosh piloted a stolen shuttle toward Dominion space with a hidden transmitter implanted beneath his scales. Crossing the border took 3 days. When Dominion ships intercepted him, Vosh prepared for interrogation he knew would be brutal, 2 weeks of questioning about human capabilities. He mixed truth with lies carefully. "The humans are stronger than intelligence suggested, but they're not invincible. They follow rules that limit effectiveness. Exploit their mercy and we can defeat them." It got him released to reserves instead of executed. Captain Threll introduced him to the resistance cell, 200 members who gathered in underground spaces. Commander Sylph led the group. "Trust is dangerous. How do?" "We know you're not a spy." "You don't," Vosh admitted. "But ask yourselves, what has loyalty to Grath brought us? We've lost fleets, our economy crumbles, our people live in fear. We're not winning, we're dying slowly." Vosh made his gambit. He activated the hidden transmitter, broadcasting live feeds of the resistance meeting to human fleet and Dominion citizens simultaneously. "Let everyone see. Let them decide if we're traitors or the only sane voices left." The transmission spread through Dominion networks before authorities could stop it. Millions watched resistance members explain grievances, saw evidence of human prisoner treatment, heard officers describe orders to target civilians. Supreme Overlord Grath responded with characteristic brutality. Military police raids, thousands arrested, public executions, but the violence proved Vosh's point. The Dominion ruled through fear. 3 frontier fleets received orders to attack Council space. Their commanders refused. Grath executed their families. The fleets defected entirely. 400 ships joining the human coalition, led by Admiral Tyron. "I taught you to follow orders," Tyron told Vosh when they met. "You've taught me that some orders deserve refusal. I won't feed the Dominion more bodies." Admiral Patricia Cross coordinated the growing coalition. 40 species contributed ships, creating a fleet of 2,400 vessels. Training exercises combined human tactics with alien technologies. Rebecca Stone worked diplomatic channels. "You can't be neutral on genocide," she told wavering delegates. "You either oppose it or enable it." The final battle came at Earth's doorstep. Grath assembled remaining loyal forces, 3,000 ships, planning to destroy humanity's homeworld. Human intelligence from Vosh's network provided complete attack plans. Patricia prepared an ambush. The Drackle fleet emerged expecting surprise. Instead faced 2,400 coalition ships in perfect defensive positions. Grath realized betrayal but ordered attack. "If we retreat, we admit weakness. Dominion never retreats." The battle was larger than anything in galactic history. Thousands of ships exchanging fire. Patricia coordinated defense with efficiency born from fighting impossible odds repeatedly. Rachel Torres led boarding action against Grath's flagship, 200 volunteers from a dozen species. Vosh walked beside her, former enemies now. Allies, when they reached the command center, Grath stood defiant. "You think you've won?" he snarled at Vosh. "Betrayed your own species for these prey animals." "I didn't betray my species," Vosh replied. "I saved it from you. The real monsters aren't humans who fight to protect. They're leaders who sacrifice their people for pride." Grath's guards lowered their weapons, choosing survival over pointless death. The Overlord faced justice alone, captured without martyrdom. The war ended not with grand speeches, but with exhausted relief. Casualty counts: 200,000 dead, 300,000 wounded, but genocide had stopped. Vosh became ambassador to the Galactic Council, representing a new Dracul government. "Earth asked what our answer to genocide was," he told the assembly. "They showed us courage when others cowered, sacrifice when others calculated, principle when others compromised, and they proved something vital. We're not monsters by nature, we're monsters by choice, and we can choose differently." Rebecca and Patricia stood together watching memorial construction, 200,000 names inscribed in light. Humans and Dracul, Morathi and Vrelian, all species united in death. "Was it worth it?" Patricia asked. Rebecca thought of Refuge 7, of children who lived because someone fought. "Every single life we saved made it worth it," she replied. Years passed, the coalition remained strong. Several conflicts resolved through diplomacy backed by credible force. No genocides occurred. When asked why humans intervened so aggressively, the standard answer from Earth Command was simple: because we could. But those who were there knew the real answer: because no one else would. Vosh gave his final speech on the anniversary of war's end, addressing the assembly. "You asked what Earth's answer to genocide was. They showed us determination, sacrifice, unwavering principle. But more than that, they showed us the true monsters, not humans who fought, not Dracul who changed. The monsters were indifference, inaction, looking away. Earth's answer was simple: no more monsters, and they meant it." The camera pulled back from council chambers, showing a galaxy dotted with lights of freed civilizations. Each one saved because someone decided to act. Rebecca's voice echoed. "We didn't save the galaxy, we just reminded it how to save itself." The screen faded to a memorial flame, burning eternally for those who gave everything so others could have anything. The lesson written in starlight: evil doesn't stop when good people watch. It stops when good people act. And Earth had taught the galaxy to act. Never again meant never again.